My brain is broken here by this song. Let's wake up in Tokyo, everyone, with RUKA and ASA. So I was asked right to do a reaction of this video, and I am a little bit honestly confused, perplexed. What is it about? Is it only two of the band members? And I think that ASA can speak Nihongo, right? Can she speak Japanese? I believe she's like half Japanese, or is she Japanese? And this is supposed to be like a J-pop song, is it? So I was like, let's go. And after we do the reaction and so on review, I also explained to you how I actually first time I went to Japan. I lived in Tokyo for a month for free, okay, as a kid, man. It was awesome, but yeah, I have an awesome story, kind of with martial art, of course. But let's go then. I'm interested, yeah. I mean, Asa was the best, I think, in the last Asa. She's my favorite. Let's be honest. I think the lyrics is the same too. So this is a video game. That's cool. Yeah.
Listen. A B C D E F G. What you know ain't what we feel. Let's go. Ding dong, ding dong. I swear I'm singing King Kong. Head bounce like King Kong. Wake up now, it's done. Ding dong, ding dong. I swear I'm singing King Kong. Ohio, cause I'm ready for this. If you need, look at me. KTT. My name is RUKA ASA. I think I might be dreaming. Looking for a fun time. In a sign of Gosa. Coco baby, mom world. If you need, look at me. KTT. My name is Asa and I'm in that. I woke up in Tokyo, Tokyo, Tokyo. I woke up in Tokyo. Let's go! I woke up in Tokyo, Tokyo, Tokyo. I woke up in Tokyo. This me like a girl. Arigato, rock and roll, rock and roll, rock and roll. Everybody rock and roll, like in Tokyo. I woke up in Tokyo. In Tokyo. I woke up in Tokyo. Hey, so jump, jump, jump. We gon' run and gun. Come and get you some. Get out one by one. Pew, pew. We're putting up boom, boom. Deliver that gold, cool. Kamehameha, Kamehameha. Get the gate to eight pajamas. Got my goods go banana. No good, you want the drama. First things to the Senkai. I woke up in Tokyo, Tokyo, Tokyo. I woke up in Tokyo. I woke up in Tokyo, Tokyo, Tokyo. I woke up in Tokyo. This feel like a song. Arigato, rock and roll, rock and roll, rock and roll. Everybody rock and roll, like in Tokyo. I woke up in Tokyo. I woke up in Tokyo. In Tokyo. I woke up in Tokyo. In Tokyo. I woke up in Tokyo. Arigato.
The J-pop song, yes. Yeah, okay. This was very different than the previous IThis BABYMONSTER. I did check out like a music video also before, but I'm pretty sure that wasn't official. Leave a comment below, guys. I can look at it afterwards here, but that video it seemed like someone cut together other music videos for them, right? I think so. But anyway, so this performance is kind of fun. I like it. It's very video game inspired, clearly. Let's break it down, right? But I mean, obviously, it's very, very video game inspired immediately, right? Which is, to fair, something that Japan, of course, is very, very famous for. And, you know, there are some good Korean games as well, right? But obviously, I love Kazan, I mentioned earlier, right? From Korea. But, I mean, Japanese game developers has very much established a lot of different genres, right? And what we see in the background looks like a typical Super Nintendo game, of course, you know, something like maybe Mega Man X, that kind of graphic style, or maybe early NES, right? But whatever, the point is that obviously I think Japan very much established a lot of those kind of arcade platforming gamers, action games, right? They've had in that era, right? And not so much from America, no. I mean, I am, of course, if you didn't know, a game developer for many years, so I really know my games, and it's like America during the 1890s, they kind of made, you know, like Magic the Gathering, these kind of games, board games, card games. They made like games like what's called like Ultima, or like Fallout. They made a lot of those PC games, either card games and PC games, role-playing games, Dungeons and Dragons, those kind of games is really what America established as genres, right? And of course FPS comes later, but yeah, Doom, of course, Wolfenstein, and so on. Yeah, so they kind of established the FPS genre, and they very much established the different role-playing games, right? Western role-playing games like D&D and so on. But Japan, they definitely did this for scene back here, right? They kind of that Nintendo vibe, the pixel graphics, the shooting, the jumping, and so on, like Mario or something. That's very, very Japanese. Yeah, I do recognize some of the scenes, so I do have to wonder if I'm getting bamboozled here. This is a fan edition, because I can see the moment here, right, which is one of my favorite monster scenes. So this thing here is the low one, this
Listen, A, B, C, D.
So I'll say with the closing, I love the bells to have. Yeah, I love the bells.
E, F, G, what you.
And the song is, of course, super weird. The song is super weird. It is catchy, though. I would say when I started listening to the song, I kind of didn't like it, honestly. For the first, it's very much just like the first minute, you kind of like, this is kind of weird, Yeah, the first minute, you're like, okay, you know what? It's like a baby rhyme in video games. I get the theme, but it's kind of weird. But after listening to it for a bit, I'm like, you know what? I kind of like it now. Yeah, I kind of like it now. I'm like, after halfway through somewhere here, I'm like, you know what? Now I
No,
like
ain't what we feel. Let's go. Ding dong. I swear I'm singing.
But yeah, obviously this is what I mean. It's very Mega Man, right? It looks like the typical box jab in Mega Man. So this is, I would say, very fairly, this is Japanese video game thing here. This is not how the games looked in the 80s and early 90s from America. Not in the beginning. Of course, some of them took afterwards. But the thing is that, right, when American developers started making these kind of games, there was because the Japanese already established those genres, right? And they had the better console, right? They never saw this games to like PC really for the first like until late 90s, I guess. Yeah.
Ding dong. It bounce like ding dong. We're popping.
King Kong, Donkey Kong and so on. Yeah.
Now it's on. Ding dong. Ding dong. I swear I'm singing King Kong. Ohio, cause are you ready for this?
And this, of course, is, yeah, I like this thing. The player, RUKA ASA, of course, fighting games or whatever, right? They have two different characters. They're gonna battle. They're going on the stage here. I like it. Yeah, it feels very video gamey. You kind of step on Street Fighter 6, right? If you play that game, where the two characters come down into 6, right? We have Alex, now let's release this last week. They're coming down to the stage, it's kind of like a fighting game. They're like, yeah, and you see them and the people are crowding, and they're like, bam, and it's like, yeah, let's go, let's fight. So it feels a lot like, okay, they're gonna go down here now, and they're gonna fight on the stage here, right? So yeah, it's very.
Look at me, my name is KANAGAWA. I think I might be dreaming. Looking for a fun time. Minasan yokoso, koko baby monster. Look at me, my name is Asa and I'm in that.
I think the song does grow on me, but it is a very, it looks super adorable though. It is a weird song. It is a very weird song, but it does grow on me. But yeah, waking up in Tokyo and you see the loading screen. I like the pixel version of it though. That being said though, I'm not like an old man developer here, but I actually do, even though I love the classic load screen here, the system itself, as a side note, I actually do really like how they've changed this, right, in modern IT and in gaming and so on, right? So what you see these days is kind of the screen going like this, right? You see this thing instead, right? Instead of seeing this thing. Because, of course, sometimes on the computer, right, just because you're over here doesn't mean you're actually finished, right? Yeah, this doesn't mean you're halfway through. This is not very common, right? You know what I mean? It's stuck on the 99%, right? So in modern games, and of course IT generally, now instead we kind of see the bar go like this, right? It doesn't go like from 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 so percent. It goes like, I'm doing something. Just so that we, the user, the gamer, we are aware that something is happening, but it doesn't go like, yeah, so we don't think, oh, it's like 1 second left now, right? So they kind of remove the promise of how much time they have to think about this thing, right? But I am thinking though. That being said, I really like it, like we see in more modern games, where they add the characters, right? So like in Fire Emblem, one of my all-time favorite games, I have all the conditions, whatever, I love Fire Emblem. In Fire Emblem, right, you see how the character are running, right? So in Fire Emblem, to this game, you see the character like being sort of running here, right? Let's say, yeah. So on top of that, I love that, like adding in the character, like sprinting on the doors. That stuff is really cool. So, people have
Let's go! I woke up in Tokyo.
this is one thing. interesting enough, I just made a game for a game jam at work actually, just like a few months ago. This background here looks incredibly similar. Did they steal my art? No, but I made a game jam where I used kind of in Unreal for one day, and I made like this 2D shooter game, like a flying game. It's for fun for work time. The game jam is for you. Basically, it's like in one day you just do something, right? So I was like, okay, I was like, oh, whatever. I want to do like a space shooter, typical, shmup game by myself, right? So I just made it, and I wrote the code or whatever stuff. But I used some, of course, assets and. So it actually looks a lot like this, and they had that it was like 3D stuck in 2D, so you could like fly your plane into the background, okay, and the enemies could like jump at you, and you could change the layer. So the game was you stuck in 2D, right? But you also had it in the layer, so it actually was like 2.5D. And that's my point, that you could like shoot to someone, you could dodge the bullets to go inside the background and out, and you could fly into the screen or whatever, so you could fly towards us. So I had a very similar background because you could kind of jump into the buildings in the back and so on, right?
I woke up in Tokyo, kiss me like a girl. Arigato, rock and roll, rock and roll, rock and roll. Everybody rock and roll, like in Tokyo.
Yeah, here this point I sort of like the song, honestly.
It's Tokyo. Hey, sir, jump, jump, jump. We gon' run and gun. Come and get you.
This feels like a horror game to me though. That's like, I don't know why, but I see the dolls here. This feels like
Get out one by one. Pew, pew. We're putting a boom, boom. The level of Goku.
KAMEHAMAHA! And of course, it's very Tokyo, it's very Dragon Ball. I talk about it a lot, right? On my general anime videos and so on, right? Of course, Dragon Ball and KAMEHAMAHA, right? It's of course probably the most iconic thing from Japan ever. It really is, right? In culture. And people love to discuss it. Oh no, Luffy Gear 5 and blah blah blah. But nothing is ever gonna beat the KAMEHAMAHA, right? Dragon Ball, of course, is an incredible massive hit, right? Culturally massive, important the whole planet. And of course, the KAMEHAMAHA is super iconic, right? And, for better or worse, right, in Dragon Ball, nerd here now, is that the KAMEHAMAHA, it's always stayed also at the best ability, right? I think one thing that made it also stay so relevant is that while Goku, right, spoilers down Dragon Ball now, why he levels up, and he turns into Kaioken, then he gets Super Saiyan, and Super Saiyan level 2 and 3, and then he gets, to Ultra and so forth. While that is happening, the KAMEHAMAHA, right, was still always, turtle wave, was still always the big thing Goku and Gohan and so on would do, That was still always the finished attack, right? It never really changed. It was always like it's a bigger, more badass KAMEHAMAHA, right? Becoming Super Saiyan, he was still, he's blonde Goku, right? But he still does the KAMEHAMAHA to win, So, it actually was in one way brilliantly to make it cool and everyone knows it, right? Because everything else around it is stronger and bigger and better and so on, right? But it was still the same like the classic iconic move that he always won every fight as a finished blow, right? With a lot of other anime mangas or whatever, right? But you can point comic books, the character learns like new abilities, and then that's the final move, right? I have Bleach behind me here, right? And in Bleach is for the same thing. It's like he goes to Sangetsu, and it's like I'm doing my cut attack, and it's kind of the same thing. Yeah, he does the same slice ability. Ichigo does that to some extent, but eventually it gets like more swords, so it stays like Sangetsu, let's do the cut. It stays somewhat like Kamehameha, but not really. He spams it probably more too. So it's a little bit like that, right? So that's what it's too. But the Kamehameha is like the most iconic thing ever. I always like people do the fake Kamehameha, so like just jumping, the other trend, right? So of course, if you go to Tokyo, you have to do a Kamehameha, right? Tagged, of course. I feel like I my brain got broken here by this song though. Like I said earlier, I do like it more and more. Do I listen to it? But overall though, I'll talk a little bit more now than on some my experience first time to Tokyo. But before that, I do want to say that I do really appreciate though when an artist, you know, can, how I say it, bjuda på sig själva, okay? I don't even know how to translate it, okay? But in Swedish, which of course is the best language, in Swedish we call this bjuda på sig själva. And it means kind of like humor me, but it means kind of like to offer yourself, which is like a really weird, bjuda is like to offer something, and you know, yourself. So it's hard to translate, but it's basically the concept, right? That you are willing to look like a fool, or you're willing to kind of make fun of yourself or whatever. So for example, top of my head here, the movie Dodgeball, right? Great movie, best in I love the movie. There's a scene where they have the judges are gonna like, oh, we need the judges to decide his goal or something, or can he stay in the game, or all stuff like that. And then suddenly Hasselhoff is there, right? That has a Baywatch. He's like, I like you, and it's kind of this weird scene, and it's like a cameo, and that feels like he's beautiful to själv, right? Because it feels like a insider joke, right? And it's like, it's kind of funny, you know, thing. So I guess one way to translate it, but I think it's kind of harsh, is saying that you're humiliating yourself, right? But in a funny way, and you're allowing people to make fun of you, right? So it's kind of like allowing people to roast you in a way, but not really. But that's kind of the idea. And in the Swedish language, it's very, very important, right? Because Swedes are very, you know, passive, very afraid of the Swedes are very, you know, conflict averse, right? So the whole concept of kind of being like, oh, I'm just gonna allow you to roast me or whatever in this like dialogue at work or whatever. It's very, very important for Swedes. And I also think Swedes and Japanese people, it's very, very similar culture. Right? One reason why I like Japanese stuff and I go into Japanese stuff, right, is of course because it is almost the same culture. Okay, Sweden and Japan are so incredibly similar. And I think especially on this kind of shame kind of thing, how you handle if your boss said this thing, I'm just gonna joke with him, you know, and so on. So it's very like both Japanese and Swedish society is very, you know, conflict averse. Right? It's very much like, okay, he kind of joked on my expense, but I'm just gonna allow it to do that, right? And then we take that a lot to our comedy, kind of this sort of thing, because I feel that I liked it. The both RUKA ASA here, it's like a cute song. It's silly, it's funny, right? It's Japan, it's video games, very inspired by Japanese culture, Dragon Ball, KAMEHAMAHA, right? And if it's just having fun, right? If it's having fun. And they're, you know, they're willing to kind of, again, bjuda på sig själv, but they're willing to kind of make a little bit fun of themselves, right, and the old culture, and it's kind of like that. So I really appreciate that everyone can do that, and it feels very grounded. It feels grounded, right? Like I am grounded now. I'm like part of this society. I'm also, because I think a lot of people that get famous or rich or whatever, right? You know what I mean? They all, you know, they go out in space. You know what I mean? Same thing with me, right? You know, because I'm very, very rich and famous. No, but honestly, right, I could be completely distant, right, from people. I think especially talking about that last year, a couple of years ago, right, when I worked with NASA and I sent up to space, right, so I sent up to space. I'm not an astronaut, I haven't been to space, right, but I worked on a project that we sent up to space and one of my science days, and from that moment, right, I could be all like, well, you know, I'm actually like a space scientist. What are you, peasant? You know what I mean? I could easily in my life act like that if someone is, you know, mean to me. But you peasant, you haven't even been to space, you know, like that kind of feel, right? My point of quote is that I think that, I know I'm being very, very self-righteous here, I suppose, but I think that I am very popular at work and so on, have a pretty good career, because I never let those big successes, right, in my life at least, from a business standpoint, go to my head, you know what I mean? Because I'm still kind of down to earth, like cute K-pop, J-pop stuff, you know, dressed in anime clothing and so on, right? But for sure, right, if you see here in my video, a lot of people don't get it, which I do enjoy, which I think is very funny though. I think a lot of people, right, they see me sitting here on YouTube and on my other channels, and I'm all this like, oh, this crazy, like, you know, otaku nerd guy, talk about music and so on, talk about directing stuff and so on, right? And people have a little weird, they can't really handle that, right? I think a lot of people have to, they force this weird box on you. Oh, like, oh, you like anime? Or you have to be a loser in life. I'm like, no, I like anime and I was a winner of that. But it's kind of like, I always find it so weird. I always find it so weird that people can't understand that outside the box you see here right now. You know what I mean? Outside this box here, right? I'm looking out there. This is like green screen, right? You know what I mean? And then I'm leaving this place, right? And I go to the door over there. and suddenly I'm living in this like 5 billion mansion. No, but you get my point, right? I do find it kind of funny, genuinely funny, that people really can't distance that for any YouTuber, not just me personally, but for anyone. People are very much, this is what you see. You see this box here, you see that, oh, this guy, he does anime, you know what I mean? Or he does video games. So that's my main thing, right? Anime, video games, and also, of course, music, right? Those are my 3 main things on YouTube, right? People think that's what he do, you know? But I'm actually a scientist that used to be a game director, a game, you know, creative guy, right? So let's talk about the first time I lived in Japan a bit. So this is another version then, right? Of them in doing the song and all the clothing, yeah. But anyway, I'll show you this again in the back, right? So I usually wear my haroyu, right? Some of the videos, you can see here. It is, of course, designed after Kaido. I love this one, you know, because we have the Japanese rising red sun and so on, right? And, you know, it's a one piece thing, of course, but, you know, I like it. The dragon coins, right? Get the shoulders on. But anyway, Japan. Let me tell you guys, the first time, right, that I visited Tokyo then. It's not like a long story, honestly, but I was really lucky, honestly, as a teenager, right? So, as you might have figured out, I'm really into, you know, martial art, right? Here's my gi that I wear then. My black belt, black gi, which is my Budoka gi then, right? You know, old school gi. And the thing is that I actually got into Japanese culture, and also, of course, Korean culture, right, from martial art. I said in the first video I made with Blackpink, right, we're talking about Korean music, is that I have a black belt in Taekwondo. Okay, so Taekwondo is one of the martial arts, sort of bit, right? And I've been to Seoul, of course, as well, but also from martial art, right? So I went to Seoul many years ago, and the same thing there. I went there because of martial art. I went there to train Taekwondo. I didn't go there because I love K-pop, and like in the first video, K-pop wasn't really like a thing then, so to speak. Obviously, Korean people were producing music, of course, when I was a teenager. But it wasn't like, you know, it wasn't like this cultural thing. This is obviously before YouTube, whatever, for TikTok, so etc. So it was like a thing, and of course I heard some Korean music when I was in Seoul, but it was similarly. And I think it was more interesting for me as like a hardcore, you know, like martial artist, right? That I would go to the temples, right? And I would, you know, listen to old school Korean music, you know what I mean? So same thing when I was in Japan, right? So I went to Japan, you rather go to the Jinyas, right? And listen to kind of like classic Enka music rather than listen to some, I don't know, yeah, okay. I'm kidding a little bit because I was into Japanese music at that time still though. A6 Generation was probably my favorite band, I think, when I went to Japan as a kid. But anyway, what happened was, which I was really lucky one then, was that I was training martial art, right? I was training this Japanese martial art, among other things. So I started a bit like Taekwondo and Judo as a kid, and I did it competitively, right? And I won a bunch of Taekwondo championships and Judo and so on, right? And then when I was like 16, I was, you know, the best student at the dojo, and I said to be brave, but I really was. I was reading everything. And I was very, very hardcore. I was very dedicated. As I say, people, dedication, right? Discipline. No, but I trained the most, right? I never missed a training. I was always training after practice. I do extra stuff, right? I was training every day at school. Like I would do push-ups during the lunch break or whatever. Literally, I was the ninja kid, as you say, right? So I would go out and I would do push-ups, right? I would have, you know, we had lunch 11 to 12, right? And I would do like, I would eat the lunch and then I would do like 50 push-ups, right? So I was like crazy fit when I was like 16 to 1. So I was super into it. And the Taekwondo was one of my main things then. So in this Japanese martial art then, right, that I was doing, right? So blah, 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 I won the stuff and I won, you know, the championship, whatever, right? My trainer then invited me to go on a camp to Japan, right? So of course his mentor trainer, main guy, of course, was a Japanese older man, obviously. So he was like, oh, we go to Japan sometimes for training camps, right? And this is like hardcore, right? This is like, we're gonna go there, we're gonna train every day, we can live in the dojo. So the first time I went to Tokyo, I was really lucky, honestly, then, 16 years old. I got to go to Tokyo for free. Yeah, I mean, of course, my mom and that stuff had to pay the tickets, right? But I had to go. I got to Tokyo the first time, and I could leave Tokyo basically almost a month with no pay. Yeah, for like no rent, no, you know, no hotels, right? Just leave the dojo. I was living at the dojo, baby. No, but seriously, yeah, seriously, right? Because I was like this like championship martial art. Imagine basically Karate Kid, right? And it's like Ralph Macchio, you know, but like basically my mentor, right, is Ralph Macchio. No, sorry, no, we're opposite. I am Ralph Macchio, and my mentor would be Mr. Miyagi, of course, yeah. So yeah, basically, right, my mentor my head coach at the dojo, my Mr. Miyagi, he would basically take me to Tokyo then, right? Since his mentor lived in Tokyo, and then we could live in basically my grandpa martial arts dojo, right? You know, so it was amazing. Yes, I could go to Tokyo as like 16-year-old, live there for like a month for free, right? Because I was living at the dojo of my mentor's mentor, basically my grandmaster Shifu, you know, my grandpa Shifu. We can live in his dojo because basically my Mr. Miyagi brought me to Tokyo with him. So that was really, really awesome. Now, that being said though, my Mr. Miyagi is actually also a white guy. So it's not, he used to point out, no, I mean, yeah. That's what's like, wait, no. But it's more kind of like, in my Freudian sleep there, I'm thinking more kind of like, you know, if you've seen Cobra Kai, right? The latest, not remake, but sequel of Karate Kid. It's more that thing. It's more like my mentor. He's more like, you know, Raf Macchio, but he's more like the Karate Kid, right? When he is an adult and Mr. Miyagi is dead or something. That's more that feeling, right? So he has another guy he knows in Japan. So he's like, let's go over there, yeah. It's more that feeling, right? So I would say something like that. He's like, let's go to my mentor's brother in Japan. Yeah, more that feeling, if anything. Like, yes, he also grew up in Sweden, but this guy trained me. But it's more like this guy moved back to Japan, so it's going to him. Yeah, I guess he wasn't dead, but yeah. It's more like that. So, but anyway, long story short, I was really lucky to be able to, of course, experience that. But yeah, anyway, guys, so that's kind of how I went to Japan, right? Like I said, I was very lucky being able to go to Tokyo. And I obviously got my family, but I was there with my trainer and so on. I was there with my Mr. Miyagi, basically. But I would say he was more like Raf Macchio, like I said. And then, you know, Miyagi isn't dead, and he's moved back to Japan, and we're going to his dojo and visit him. So it was very, very nice. And yeah, people obviously wear his outfit. Every Japanese woman I saw looked like this. Yeah, 100%, man, on Shibuya. No, but I really love Japan, of course. And I started working. Oh man, this even more video game than this one. This one actually looks even more video gaming. So you saw that thing? I was gonna say, see you guys have a great day, but as I put out that there was like this MEGAMAN thing there with the codes. Let me just explain that. That is so gone now. And yeah, I wish we had like a better video of this thing. But I like it even more. I missed another one. Yeah, there we go. This is another one. So one thing which reminds me so much with the MEGAMAN is that back in the days, right? You didn't have save slots, okay? I know, like, oh yeah, you young people, I saw sleeping. You young guys, it's one thing that was so funny back in the days. It ended with like PlayStation, but it was that you couldn't save in some games, okay? You couldn't save. Some of course had them, because the PC was save state, right? So saving away the place or make the file PC. But early games didn't have that, so we actually had stuff like this. Right? We had codes. So when you play that MEGAMAN X and you beat a boss, you would get like this code of like, you know, 777832511 in this. Yeah, so I have a paper. I still had it. So I was looking through some of my old stuff actually recently, and I still have one of those papers. Right, it's like an A4, you know, paper, right? And I looked at it, and I was like, it's a bunch of numbers in this square. It's like 16 numbers in a square, another square. And I was like, what is this thing? Like, oh, it's MEGAMAN X1 codes because you couldn't save. So you would beat a boss and you would write down all the numbers, and then you beat the next boss, you write down the numbers, right? So that you could load by, you know, you had to load it and write in the numbers in the game. So yeah, back in the old games, this is how it actually looked. You had that screen in sort of the game, you had to like write down, like yeah, to load the game, man. Yeah, that has changed. That was a funny thing. That was so weird. Also, I think it's weird, honestly, because I love MEGAMAN games so on. And I couldn't imagine myself if I went back today and played a MEGAMAN game, I would never use the code slot. I would just play the game from the beginning. It takes like an hour to beat the game anyway, so I wouldn't do it like that. But yeah, that was a thing though. In some of the games, you had to get the code up and write it. And that was, man, I like this. I like the performance. Yeah, I feel like an old man though. Absolutely, watch this video talking about my old adventure to Seoul and Tokyo and so on. But also like, yeah, you're seeing these screens, very 8-bit, 32. 60 bits, that kind of era between those, right? But yeah, I wish we had another version of this thing. This one are definitely more sassy, I think, than the other ones. But yeah, I don't think there are any actual music video, right? People just ask me to do a reaction to this thing, and I feel this is the correct thing, right? And I did, of course, check it out before. Obviously, I'm not crazy. I did check out, of course, the videos before. And I searched on their main channel, so I couldn't find anything else than these live performances and that music video that I shit a little bit, but it looked fake. So I was like, okay, let's just go away, right? I think someone just put up their music on top of their other previous pads, like I said earlier. But anyway, guys, like the video, subscribe, press the like button. Tell me if you visit Tokyo. Have you ever woken up in Tokyo? I mean, I have, of course, and I've worked with a lot of Japanese companies too. The biggest one for me, of course, is Square Enix, right? That I work with as well. It has, you know, they're obviously in Tokyo, so they have more offices as well. And I also do travel a lot for work, though. Yeah, so I don't know. You get kind of used to it. As a side note, tell me if well, generally I wonder this here. Okay, tell me, I'm sleeping here. Okay, side note. That's why I asked him before the video. Tell me, do you find it easier to wake up in Tokyo? Right? Let's put it on a quiz. Do you think it's easier to wake up at a place where you don't live? I actually think it's really easier. So I have struggled with insomnia my whole life, right? And I am not ashamed to say that whatsoever, because I am an overthinker. I'm a smart, panty guy, right? So I spend way too much time, right, thinking. You know what I mean? So I have a hard time sleeping right? Because I think too much. You know, my brain never turns off, right? As you might imagine, I'm always like like this, right? Honestly. So I have a hard time. I don't have a hard time sleeping when I'm sleeping, but I have a hard time, you know, falling asleep. You know what I mean? But my point is that I'm actually always way better when I travel. That's because you guys, do you have it like me? Because when I'm home, I have a hard time falling asleep, right? But when I go to Tokyo, so to speak, when I do kind of live there, but when I go to, not Tokyo now, but when I go to a new place, so for example, last year, I was in Florida. I've been in Florida many times, but I was in Florida in a new place. So I've been in Orlando mostly, you know, and like Titusville and so on, obviously that New York. But last time I was in northern, I was in the Panhandle, I was in the Gulf. First time I was in the Gulf of Florida, and I slept like a baby, right? So I do feel that people have the same thing, right? Like it's not easier waking up and falling asleep, I feel, where I'm actually in a completely new place. And it sounds really weird, but it's like my body just turns off immediately, where I should, in a way, be less safe, right? Because it's like, oh, it's the first time in Tokyo, first time I'm in Seoul, and my body should be all like, oh my god, what if I have to fight someone? But instead, my body is like, okay, we have to rest, because we are at unknown territory. My body, I fall asleep immediately. So I actually kind of like traveling, guys, for many reasons, but I actually like traveling because I feel I actually sleep better when I travel. And it's kind of like if I go to a tournament, right? Especially when back in the days when I was very competitive, martial arts level, that when I went to like another city to fight, you know, sitting there, I slept better. It's like my body was like, okay, we have to be ready tomorrow. Yeah, it's like, and I wake up, and I never was oversleep because I always wake up when I have to wake up. Yeah, so I was also waking up, you know, like fight like that. So yeah, do you have the same thing as me? That it is way easier actually sleeping, I feel, when I'm not home. The less safe I feel, the easier I sleep. I know it sounds a bit weird, you know what I mean? So if I've been in a place too many times, it actually gets worse, right? So if I'm Orlando, I've been in Orlando too much in Florida, so now I feel like it's like a second home, you know? Like, oh, so now I'm just being back in that classic, like, oh, I can't sleep, there's stuff to do, you know? It's like the more worried I am, the more I'm like, okay, the more I'm bothered it's like that when I have to sleep. Anyway, guys, have a couple of what do you give me? Otherwise, you guys have a great day.